And that is why it was very important that they bring back those particular artifacts. Madam Speaker, even in many other areas, many other communities, even the sub-tribes where we come from, there are artifacts which were confiscated, like the stools, the three-legged stools, which were used for prayers and were used also for blessings, and which were confiscated by the Europeans. Madam Speaker, there are those ones that remained. There are those ones that we still have in our homes. And this law, Madam Speaker, protects the misuse and the looting and the stealing of these particular artifacts which can help, or which were used as our traditional memories for traditional use. Madam Speaker, when we talk about culture also touches on the cultural clothing. Every community, Madam Speaker, in this country have their own traditional clothing, their own cultural clothing. And Madam Speaker, I would wish also one day in this house, Madam Speaker, we introduce a cultural day where every member, because at least we all come from particular backgrounds, particular communities, so that we can say this is a cultural day where every member of this house will wear their cultural clothing, so that we dress the way our communities used to dress. And you will be shocked, Madam Speaker, because we have our dresses, cultural dresses that fits us so well, and they are so good, so that when you see our ladies, if they were to put on those particular clothings and dresses, Madam Speaker, you'll be shocked at how beautiful they look. And even men, when they put on those particular dresses, clothes, Madam Speaker, you will imagine how also men handsomely look, apart from the ones we wear in Parliament. Like when we put on, Madam Speaker.
I know the Honorable Irene Mayaka is next in my list, but I think you are saying you have a point of order, Honorable Irene Mayaka? Yes. Please proceed. What is out of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Member is out of order because he's telling us that we only look beautiful when we wear cultural clothes. What does he mean? What is he insinuating? Is he trying to say that right now we don't look beautiful? He needs to withdraw.
Madam Speaker,
I thought we could address the first point of order. Honorable
yes,
Member for Emukuru, what do you have to say about that?
And I will address Mheshimiwa Millie's also point of order. I know what she is.
No. You cannot address a point of order when you have not heard it.
I will, Madam Speaker, I just want to say that, you know, when you look, I said our women, our ladies will look even more beautiful when they dress in their traditional dress. Just like our men will look more handsome when they dress in our cultural dresses. So, Madam Speaker, what I meant is, we are beautiful.
Chairman, order.
Our ladies are beautiful.
Order. We have another point of order by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Please take your seat. What is out of order, Honorable Millie Odhiambo?
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Madam Speaker, I'm just worried that the member seems to suggest that we should be coming to Parliament dressed, naked with just a small thing underneath. Because culturally, that's how we dressed. We were naked with something underneath. Madam Speaker, is that really in order? Is that what we are implying? Our culture, we were half naked, Madam Speaker. The world is evolving, and that is part of culture. So are you suggesting that members should be coming to the house naked?
Madam Speaker, we should be proud of our culture. And it doesn't matter how that culture looked like. Whether we used to put on. And after all, Madam Speaker, when you look at the kinds of dressing that we have today, our ladies are almost naked. And yet, that is not even our cultural dress. So what I meant, Madam Speaker, is that we would, let us be proud of where we are, where we came from, who we are. And that starts from our artifacts, to our dress, to our food, to the food that we eat, to the sites that we normally visit. Because, Madam Speaker, even the cultural sites that we visit will look more, even healing, than the sites that we visit, like even the National Assembly. Madam Speaker, we normally had places that we will go for cultural prayers, and they look so soothing than even any other place. So what I meant, Madam Speaker, is that our ladies are beautiful, but they would be more beautiful if they were to put on.
Well, you've done very well to defend yourself.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for indulging me, Madam Speaker, because as I'd requested, we are having Madam Speaker, because as I'd requested, we are having a current meeting with the different departments on the budget policy statements. I have to run back. Madam Speaker, I wish to say that I support this bill. And Madam Speaker, there is definitely need for cultural preservation. And Madam Speaker, because culture is what shows our identity as a people. And the people who don't have their culture or don't preserve their culture are a lost people because they don't know who they are. Madam Speaker, because I don't want to adversely mention a friendly country, of late I've been to many countries. And I can tell you there's one country that has built completely, they brought a city anew. And if you actually look at that city, there's something that is lacking. It lacks a spirit because it lacks the culture. That they have done so much in the last 5 or so years to modernize it, but because the modernized aspect doesn't show you where they're coming from, the city feels empty. It doesn't have a spirit because it doesn't show what the people were like. And so, Madam Speaker, if you look at, for instance, somewhere like Marrakesh in Morocco, it shows where they're coming from. It's so beautiful, it shows the culture. But culture is not just manifest in the physical, but I like this bill because it just shows also that it is also in very different aspects, including language. And as a person who is a cultural minority, I know what that means. Madam Speaker, I am born a Suba. My father is a Suba. And I have seen in my generation how that has actually transformed over the years. Where up to my grandfather has a Luo name and a Suba name. All the people ahead of him have very Suba Bantu names. All of us are from my grandfather down, now only have Luo names. And we have lost the Suba names. Madam Speaker, fortunately, the language has been restored. So the Suba now speak Suba, but not all Suba speak Lusuba. But for a fact, we have almost lost all the culture in relation to Suba, except a few. And I want to thank the organizations that have been doing cultural events that seek to sustain what is a little that is remaining of the Suba people as a people. And Madam Speaker, I am actually a very proud Suba, even though I can tell you I'm both Suba and Luo because my mother is Luo. And I love that we preserve both the Luo culture and the Suba culture. Madam Speaker, one of the issues that I'd want to also indicate, which I've seen this bill commenting on, but we need to strengthen, is the issue of intellectual property rights on our culture. That there are so many people that have been appropriating our cultural issues. Give example of even our cultural dressing, Madam Speaker. And they go and sell it at a song. Yet it is actually who we are. And in the US now, it's a very big issue called cultural appropriation. That when you see people doing or saying things that is not there, people are saying, I don't want to culturally appropriate. And in the same manner, we need to use those same terminology that we actually criminalize cultural appropriation, or find a way, even if we don't criminalize it, to make sure that we preserve our culture and the things that are very important to us that other people may wish to appropriate. There must be a way in which they pay back to our societies for using that. Madam Speaker, I can tell you for a fact when I go outside, I wear this band on my head. And in Kenya, people just say, oh, Millie, we actually see you like it's an insignia, it's what shows who you are. But in a lot of communities in Kenya, we actually have this. It's just at a modernized mind. In the Luo culture, if you see me doing the beaded one, it is called ligisa. And ligisa is worn by women in leadership. So if you see me wearing that, it basically says, in my culture, it shows that I'm a woman leader. But for now, because we don't actually take it seriously, when people see me, think it's just an issue, a statement of fashion. Yes, it's fashionable, but it's also cultural. And it is not just amongst the Luo community, it's amongst very many communities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we must also see how we link culture with the tourism. I want to thank the Parliament that they recently organized a very good training, and the training was on PPP, public-private partnerships. And Madam Speaker, one of the things that I actually picked up from that is the immense potential of linking tourism and culture. And Madam Speaker, I recently, together with my husband, we've recently visited a place called El Nido in the Philippines. And Madam Speaker, we pay quite a bit of money to do things which you could do here in Kenya very easily. Things like cultural immersion and doing things that have to do with our culture. Visiting a spiritual center like Atego Island in my constituency, visiting the two bird islands in my constituency, or the cultural caves in Fagano Island, amongst others. We have a lot that we get from our culture that we can use to, encourage tourism. Madam Speaker, however, I just want to say that I have a rider in relation to this bill that we must strengthen, which is the issue of harmful cultural practices. The Constitution outlaws harmful cultural practices, and I would want us to strengthen the sections of this bill that deals with harmful cultural practices, and say that even though we actually allow cultural practices, there are certain cultural practices that are harmful, such as female genital mutilation, beading, forced wife inheritance, early and forced marriage of young girls. And Madam Speaker, you find there are people, when you go to communities, they want to justify for you. Before I came here, I used to represent a lot of young girls and women in court. And I remember one time when we were in Kajiado court, and the Children Act had just already passed. And we arrested some old man who had married a 10-year-old girl. And when we went there, he said, no, but this is allowed in my culture. And then when we told him, no, we cannot allow you, it's no longer allowed in law, then he said, did Honorable Saitoti know that you passed such a law? Because he thought then Honorable Saitoti should have stopped us from passing a law stopping him from marrying a 10-year-old girl. So because of that, Madam Speaker, we must put a rider that even though we have culture, there are certain cultural practices that are retrogressive. But also, Madam Speaker, one of the things that I want us to do is to enhance the historical bit where we have now distorted culture. And Madam Speaker, if you actually look at our historical issues, you discover, for instance, amongst the Luo community, women were really respected and exalted. But now people are actually doing the reverse. If you look at the bigger clans in Luo, they start with their female name. It's almost like the House of Mumbi. We start with the Kanyamwa, Kanyadoto, Kanyekela, Kanya something. They are all about women. But now we are being told women cannot lead. Who told you women cannot lead? We are in charge of clans. So if you are in charge of clans, why can we then not lead? We must put our history correctly, and our history respected and exalted women. And I want to say that I'm very happy the House of Mumbi has actually kept that. And so we know that's why you see a lot of women in Kikuyu land get elected, because they preserved that history. But in some of our areas, we are losing that. And so we have people creating their own stories about what was there in culture. Madam Speaker, I support and I look at it more keenly so that I see if there are areas, the areas that I've spoken, if they are not well covered, that will bring amendment. I support. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Johanna Ngeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also wish to...
In history. It means that culture is our way of life. It's the language we speak, it's the song we sing, it's the food, the dress that we have, the food we eat, the sports, everything about our lives is culture. but it is as lived by our people at a particular time in history. It means that culture evolves. It is dynamic. It changes from time to time. The people of the past had their own culture. It moved on and changed on, and we acquired others, and we dropped other ways of culture, other ways of survival, and we moved on and acquired others. Just like language dies. When a language dies, then that culture is finished. That culture, the people of that language will not exist because the language has died. It is important to realize that culture is our identity. If it dies, we are dead. It is cardinal. It is in our lives. It is part and parcel of us. It is our gene that if it is not there, we are not human beings. Unfortunately, our culture, African culture, Kenyan culture, all the tribes that we have, 42 or 43 that we have, these are cultures that are very, very important. But they have been interfered with in the past through colonialism. And it is still being interfered with. It is still changing. It is still not the same as a long time ago. But we need to preserve them because we are preserving our identity. We will be laughed at if we do not preserve it. If I lose my Luo language, where will I belong? What will people think of me? But our children are losing it, and we are not caring. We do not give a hoot about the language that our children are speaking today. They are mixing up English and Swahili and a bit of their local language. Sometimes they speak pure American English, and they cannot utter a word, even the word thank you, even the word asante sana, they cannot speak it because they speak European language. We are, as parents, have also failed in preserving the culture of our people because we enjoy to see our children speak British or American English. Secondly, we have tried in this country to preserve culture through the museums that we have. But unfortunately, again, these museums, they're shallow. I was in a committee of sports last parliament, and we had a chance to visit a number of museums that we had. It was shameful to see how shallow, how empty they were. There were no anything that would indicate the culture of our people. They were scanty, they were too old, they were torn apart. We need to create or come up with what we can show to our children as part of what is in the museum. The museums are not having the right things. They're too old, too broken apart. Nobody seems to put money there to ensure that even our museums have the items, the artifacts that require our understanding of the past. That is missing. The school system has tried, I must say that, because we normally have school music festivals, drama festivals. These are events that help us nurture the past, bring out the past. Our children try to wear those clothes of long ago so that they can sing these songs when they come for competition. But it's just for competition and the story is over. We do not carry it forward. We do not say, we do not care about the clothes that we used to wear in the past and keep them and reserve them somewhere in the museum. It is just for events for a period over 1 day, 2 days, and it's over. It's unfortunate that we do not celebrate our culture. We need to do that constantly. In this country, we also have Heroes Day. We celebrate our heroes, the people of the past, what they did for us, how great men and women they were, and we celebrate them. But at least there we conquer. There we have done well, because it's every year we celebrate the great men and women of this country, of the past and of the present. They've done marvelously well. In my community, recently in Nyanza, last December, that's 3 months ago, we had a celebration, a 2-day celebration, which was called Pinyu Luo. Pinyu Luo simply means Luo world, the Luo world. And we invited guests from all over. We were tracing the history of the Luo people, right from Sudan, and how they spread out in so many countries in this world. They're in Uganda, they're in Tanzania, they're in West Africa, they're everywhere. So many countries. And many people came to celebrate the Luo culture at that time. There were music, good food of long ago, and men and women who know the history of the Luo movement from Sudan to here. Even today, we were praying for a great professor, Professor Bethuel Alan Ogot, who has written a lot about the Luo culture in many, many books and articles. In one of the presentations last December, before he passed away, he told us the power of women, how women were highly respected, and how even in the Luo movement from Sudan, the people who led the Luo movement, a number of them were women. He highlighted the role that women played in history in the Luo people. But somehow today we are losing it. Nobody cares about the role that women play historically in various movements, historical movements, in wars and anything else. Appreciation and making sure that we conserve the names, the activities, and the roles that they play. It is therefore very important that this bill must be supported, because it is a bill that is helping in preserving a culture that is dying. The Kenyan culture is rich. We are 42 communities. And that does not mean we are divided. It simply means all these communities with their cultures can make us very strong as a united nation. Kenya is a united nation. 42 communities form a nation. And so we need to celebrate the cultures that we have, the 42 cultures that we have. I know culture is dying, but we need to still fight very hard to protect it. We need to protect Gotramogi. That is a hill where our ancestors settled when they arrived in Kenya those many years. Nobody should go there in that land and start digging and treating it like its own. It must be protected, and nobody should interfere with it. We have the Kikuyu Kiondo. I remember very much in this very house, somebody brought the issue of Kikuyu Kiondo, that some other European countries are grabbing and calling it their own. It is owned by the Kikuyus because that is a traditional basket that they weave that is part and parcel of their identity. But some people, foreigners, have grabbed it and made it their own. So that is where the catch is. We are losing what we have to the European countries. We need to grab back our culture that they've taken, what they're making so much money on, that belong to us. We need it here, right here. Because if we don't watch it, they will grab everything and they will take us back to their country and make money out of us. Very soon, you will call that slavery. They will soon pick us up and take us over there if they're taking some of our property that we need to protect. I'd like to conclude, because I'm rushing somewhere else, to say that I support very, very highly this very bill, because I'm supporting our identity, I'm supporting our way of life, I'm supporting the Kenyan people who are protecting and fighting for their communities, fighting for their values, fighting for their way of life as lived by a people of today's culture. Thank you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this debate that I like because of the Cultural Bill 2024 that has been moved very ably by the Chief Whip, and I have been listening. And as one of the people who love their culture and just get excited about our cultures, I have been so excited this evening. And also seeing that there are many people like me. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill fully because the bill was informed by Article 11 of the Constitution of Kenya, which recognizes culture as the foundation of the nation and as the cumulative civilization of Kenyan people and the nation. It commits the government to promote all forms of national and cultural expression. In fact, what excites me is all forms of national and cultural expression through literature, arts, traditional celebrations, science, communication, information, mass media, publication, libraries, and other cultural